Hello, my noble band of outlaws. Outlaw Samurai coming at you live with a video. Throwback review time for the Spring Sakura. Not doing these in any particular order, just grabbing swords off the sword rack until I'm done. And I've learned from my past mistakes and actually wrote my findings down. So without probably don'ts and shouldn'ts, let's get started. First, I'll go through the specifications. In the throwback reviews, I don't read the full description. Vibrant, radiant, beautiful cherry blossoms, samurai motif, blah 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 blah. Specifications. On Cult of Athena, it says 39 and 7/8 inch overall length. I measured 40-inch overall length. Blade length on Cult of Athena is 28 inches. I measured 27.5 because they included the habaki, which you are not supposed to do. Okay, you measure to the mumachi line where the habaki meets the katana blade. Weight on Cult of Athena, it was 2 pounds 77 ounces. Mine was 2 pounds 5.5 ounces, so there's a 2.2 ounce difference. The point of balance was 5 1/4, again measured from the guard, not the mumachi, where it is supposed to be measured from, as all measurements of the blade are supposed to be measured from in a Japanese sword, so mine came out to 4 1/2. Grip length is 10 and 1/8 inches, and I will admit that's one that I kind of overlooked in my remeasurings. But for those of you wondering, it's a perfect 11-inch grip. Now, with the boring technical specifications out of the way, let's get down to the throwback review of this sword. As you notice, my throwback reviews are getting shorter, mainly because I'm refining them as I go. So, first of all, how has the sword aged in the almost 2 years I've had it, I believe? At the least a year and a half. Well, unlike its big sister, the Kashira has become loose. The Shirodome are also glued in. They have the same little presence of telling you they're there, but also they're not a hot spot at all. The slight ledges where the Kashira and the Ito meet. I don't find the knots on this sword to be uncomfortable at all. In fact, I actually do use the knots as kind of an indexing point when I use this thing two-handed. On very rare occasions, because of its size, I don't really need to use it two-handed. Next, the Ito wrap itself. Still very tight, very serviceable. This is what I would consider a damn good Ito wrap. Dragon King does a very good job on their Ito wraps. Neither the Spring Sakura nor the Winter Sun have loosened on me in the slightest since I've used them and cut with them. The wrap itself has gotten a little dirty, but that's mainly because of dust and particulates from my hand. I honestly don't use my Dragon Kings much. Mainly in my videos, you see me use the Warrior O, which is my predominant cutting sword. Simply because, as I've stated before, and it's a broken record at this point, it's a good size sword for me. I like big blades. Now, the Minuki also should be mentioned. Cherry blossoms, whole cherry blossom theme going on. The Samegawa has not yellowed or aged. The Fushira has a slight bit of play, not much, not anything detrimental. This sword has not gone through any kind of detrimental training that would make it hard to use. And it also should be mentioned that unlike its big sister, the Akashira has not browned nearly as much. I know you can't really tell in this light, but it's still a very dark shade of black with a slight highlight of amber. Fushira is the same. The brass seppa and the seppa on this sword, I want to actually take a little note, are actually of substantial thickness and quality. Something I didn't mention before, but this is a throwback review where I actually say intelligent shit. The Tsuba itself is a cast cherry blossom motif that carries on over as a literal cherry blossom. The habaki is supposed to be silver. I don't know how to verify that. It looks like a very polished out brass to me. The blade, on the other hand, is, well, you know my edge. Stupid sharp. Of course, this is the edge I put on it, not the edge it came with. The edge it came with was sharp, it just needed a touch up, and a few swipes on the 6000 grit brought it up to a very nice, keen edge. The sword is still very solid. It has not really gained any kind of noticeable looseness. There's just the ever so very slight clicking noise, but I actually have to induce the clicking noise. It doesn't happen naturally. Next, as we can see, we're going to be moving on to the slashy, stabby, stabby kill part. The blade itself. The blade does not feature a geometric yokote line. It is burnished on. The spine is of a high mirror polish, while the main cutting edge is of a high satin polish. And honestly, I very much like this sword. To me, this is basically what I would carry as a wakizashi. I know it's a full-size katana, but to me this is perfect wakizashi length. That's why the official daisho of this channel is this and its elder sister, the Winter Sun. Now, as for how the blade moves, it is a very light and nimble blade. I have absolutely no trouble controlling this or stopping it mid-swing if I have to. Even with full powered swings, I can stop this if I really need to. So its maneuverability is very high, and it has a lot of tip control. In my personal opinion, I can put the point wherever I need to, whether I'm thrusting or I'm feinting into a thrust and then having to switch to a block. Something like that. Very simple, very quick and nimble to do with this sword. Now, I've done plenty of cutting already with this sword, so I can already tell you that it is a phenomenal cutter, even for its small stature. When Matthew Jensen did his review of this sword, he mentioned that it would be good for a woman in general, women that are practicing swordsmanship because of its small, light stature. Not to say that this sword could not be used by a man as well, as evidenced by myself and Matthew Jensen, but I am inclined to agree with him to a point of this sword is very much suited to practitioners of the smaller stature. mainly below like 5'10", 5'7", somewhere in those measurement ranges. Even going so short as 4'11". Now, overall, what do I think of this sword? I think that it is a phenomenal blade for the price you pay for it. At the time of this throwback review, the price of this sword new is $379.99. That is not including shipping and tax. Though I live in Indiana, states and shipping fees will vary. But its base price is around $380, and I can honestly say that that is a justifiable price for the quality you pay for. It is slightly encroaching on that middle budget range sword. It's really, I feel like $400 baseline is the beginning of the middle budget range of blades, and anything between $400 and $300 is in that slight sort of budget, beginning middle budget range of blade. So this is falling into that sweet spot, but you get a lot of blade for that price. The steel of the blade is 5160 spring steel, which is a very hard, durable steel that makes very good, tough sword blades. It's my personal steel of choice because it's the steel I have the most experience in actually cutting with, considering that most of my swords are either 1055 from Cold Steel or 5160 spring steel from Hanwei, or in this case Dragon King as its affiliate. But who do I personally think that this sword would fit? Honestly, I believe that this sword would fit perfectly well in the hands of a beginner. Its light, nimble nature, combined with the fact that it can be quickly stopped and quickly accelerated, make it a good cutter, make it a good sword for beginners who kind of jump the gun sometimes. And because it's a high quality spring steel, 5160, it will take bad off-angle cuts and not just bend, snap, break, or take a set. Not to saying that it can't do all those things, but it's much more difficult for it to do those things. They don't call spring steel swords beater blades for nothing. Now, overall, I believe that this sword would be perfectly suited to be given in the hands of a beginner. If you are beginning your journey in swordsmanship, this is the perfect kind of template for you to begin with. Price-wise, I will admit, is a little high for someone just beginning their journey into cutting, but especially since you can get swords from Amazon sub $100 that will do the same thing with a little more upkeep. But here's the thing, the Dragon King seasonal collection, the Winter Sun, the Spring Sakura, the Summer Lotus, the Autumn Leaf, they are all made for beginners and active practitioners of swordplay. So, because of the short blade length, you also gain a lot of control over your cuts. And when you're just starting out beginning swordsmanship and cutting in general, shorter blades are recommended simply because they are easier to control and they are easier to get good cuts with. Longer blades, such as this thing's elder sister, the Winter Sun, and the Dragon King, the Warrior O, are much harder to control and require a lot more experience and strength to wield effectively. But that is basically where I believe that this sword finds its niche, is a good quality, durable, beginner sword that will take a beating, won't break on you easily, is a little expensive, but a sword like this is an investment blade. If you're going to be going to dojo, going to class, like religiously every day, or semi-religiously I should say, like every week, and you know you're going to be doing a lot of like cutting and drawing, this sword is a good blade for you to do all that with, because again, as I said, it has all the characteristics to be a great cutter. The size is right, the weight is right, the control, I did an Elmer Fudd there, the weight is right, the control is right, and also the steel is right. Because let's be honest, most of us beginning, we're going to misalign our cuts, we're going to have bad cuts, and 5160 spring steel can take a very keen edge, keep that edge for a relatively good amount of time, and as I said before, will snap on you. Or at least, if it does snap, that means someone fucked up with the blade, and hopefully it wasn't you that just had insane power. But in any case, I digress. So, very much a beginner sword that has the budget, and a sword for a more studious practitioner. And also, something I've been kind of keeping backburnered as an active thought in my head is that 5160 as a whole, as a beater steel, is good if you don't have a large variety of targets. Most of your high performance, high class competition cutting swords are designed to cut literally one thing. And that is tatami mats, the traditional cutting target that replaced human flesh and bone. I know, hashtag bring back live execution. Let's start that hashtag. Let's bring back... I know, let's start that hashtag, bring back live execution. Sorry if I look different, I had to do some editing to clear some space off my phone. In any case, now we're going to move on to the saya itself. Now, the saya does come with horn fittings on the bottom, the knob, and the top. The koiguchi is of reasonable quality, and I haven't had to do any kind of shimming or gluing onto this thing to actually keep the spring Sakura in the saya, which is a major plus. But overall, my final thoughts and conclusions to this sword, and no, this is not the Sageo it came with, this is my own thing where I make the paracord Sageo to match the overall theme of the sword. But what do I think of this sword, and where do I think it would shine the most? Well, considering everything altogether, this would be perfect for the for a practitioner of swordplay that is serious about that is actively taking classes, that have cutting as a part of the class, and that is mainly focused on mastering their kata because of the size and specs that this blade has. It perfectly falls into most of the categories where blades of this size are mandatory by schools. 27-inch nagasa, 10-inch grip, a very standard Japanese measurements of katana in the period. Now, why else? Now, aside from the practitioner, this would also be good for someone's first sword if they have the money to afford one. Simply because everything, as I mentioned before, is right. Its length is right, its ability to be controlled and maneuvered is right, its ability to be stopped on a dime is right, and the steel is right. And something I've been backburnering in my mind as a constant thought is that 5160 spring steel, being a spring steel and being a very resilient steel in all, is very good if you don't have access to a large variety of targets, like your standard water bottles, pool noodles, etc., etc. Now, the most high-end competition cutting swords are designed to do one thing, and that is cut tatami mat, which is the traditional cutting target that replaced human bones and flesh. As I mentioned previously with the whole hashtag bring back public execution, we really need to actually bring those back and mandate them, because that would make a lot of people think twice. I know. And I'm not talking the like peaceful injections. No, I'm talking like bringing them to the gallows and letting the guillotine come down. Or the swordsman. I'd audition to be my state's executioner if Indiana had the death penalty. But that's my personal belief there. But yes, because of the fact that this is 5160 spring steel, it has the ability to cut and survive cutting through a lot of targets that you generally would not cut through. These would include, but are not limited to, saplings, brush, like bushes, briar patches, things of that nature. Hell, even a tree. I cut down a tree with the Warrior O, and also, if you've been anywhere, like I said in the Warrior O video, if you've ever been in anywhere near Indiana or the forests of Appalachia, you know them big ass vines that hang from trees. I've cut straight through those vines with the winter sun. Haven't with this one, but I'd assume because they share a similar blade profile that this one would cut through just as easily. But those are my final thoughts and conclusions. If you have the money to invest in a sword like this, I would highly recommend it as your first blade. Dragon King as a brand is a very well respected brand. I can actually endorse Dragon King in terms of their quality because I actually have and use their products. Not to say, now, caveat here, Dragon King is not sponsoring me. I am not sponsored by anyone. I am giving my honest opinion. If I thought this thing sucked monkey balls, I'd tell you, this sword sucks monkey balls, don't buy it. But at the same time, if I thought that this thing was a goddamn, I guess, Kong, Godzilla slaying, holy dimensional slasher, then this thing would be a Kong, Godzilla slaying dimensional slasher or whatever. Basically speaking, if I think the sword is shit, I'll tell you it's shit. If I think the sword is good, I'll go and tell you it's good. And this is a good blade. Might need to touch up the edge just ever so slightly when you get it. But aside from that, perfectly functional. Now, there is one last thing that I should mention, and as I told you before how I like the very thick, robust SEPA on here, there is one thing that I should mention before I go about the SEPA, and that is I know you're not supposed to grab it like this, but I tend to do it. I tend to change up my grip as necessary. But in any case, if you do just choke all the way up onto the Tsuba, there's no hot spots on the Tsuba itself, but you will actually feel the sharp edges, or at least the sharp points of the jimping on the SEPA. Just something I thought I'd mention. So, until next time, my noble band of outlaws, Outlaw Samurai tells all y'all, be crazy rednecks, be safe and use your weapons. I'm out, peace, and I hope you found this useful. As I said, I'm working on shortening these throwback reviews down a bit. And working on my ramblings. See ya.